If you've clicked on this, you're already wondering, why would New York City, the Big Apple, City of Dreams, destroy one of its most prized architectural gems? Adorned with intricate stone carvings and lavished with bronze details, the Charles M. Schwab Mansion was once a crown jewel that stood grandly on the growing Manhattan skyline, resplendent in its Beaux-Arts style. The mansion, completed in 1906, was the epitome of Gilded Age opulence. Each one of its 75 rooms showcased the finest examples of artisan craftsmanship: frescoed ceilings that told tales of centuries long gone, hand-laid mosaic floors reflecting the glittering chandeliers above, and walls of mahogany and imported silk that whispered stories of the privileged few who had crossed their thresholds. Gardens designed by the famed landscape architect Charles W. Levitt surrounded this massive abode, creating a sanctuary of tranquility amidst the constant bustle of the city. The Charles M. Schwab Mansion was an awe-inspiring residential monument to an era when the city's elite, like its steel magnate owner, wielded their wealth with an ostentatious display of power. Of course, with all of this once standing in beautiful granite reality, one can't help but wonder, how did such a remarkable monument to excess meet its fateful end in a cloud of dust and rubble, replaced by cheap apartments? In today's video at Old Money Mansions, we'll tell you the true rags-to-riches-to-rags story of its builders, what possessed them to build such a palatial abode in what would become the center of America's largest city, and how it sadly met its final demise, as we describe why New York's most opulent mansion was demolished for cheap apartments. Charles M. Schwab. It's a name that's more than just a name. It's a symbol, a snapshot of a time when the clang of metal and the glow of molten steel was the beating heart of America. Born in 1862 to a blanket manufacturer in the quaint borough of Williamsburg, Pennsylvania, little did anyone suspect that this modest lad would one day become a titan of the steel industry. Life began simply for Schwab, his hands learning the gritty texture of honest labor at Edgar Thomson Steelworks, an enterprise owned by the formidable Andrew Carnegie. But it was soon clear that Schwab was not one to be confined within the maze of machines and molten metal. His people skills and harmonious leadership style caused him to climb the ranks, reaching the zenith as the president of Carnegie Steel. Yet this was only the beginning. Schwab would become the first president of the United States Steel Corporation, masterminded by the legendary J.P. Morgan, before setting up Bethlehem Steel, which would claim its own spot as the second-largest steel producer in America. Even though wealth poured in, Schwab remained warm-hearted, known for his down-to-earth charisma and ability to connect with people. Amidst all this, he found love and married Emma Urana Dinkey in 1883. The future Urana Schwab grew up in the modest charm of Weatherly, Pennsylvania, a far cry from the opulent life that would eventually unfurl before her as the spouse of one of the wealthiest individuals on the globe. Her life took a dramatic turn in 1883 when she crossed paths with Charles M. Schwab, who was then residing in Braddock, Pennsylvania, during his tenure at the Edgar Thomson Steelworks. As the Schwab fortune swelled, Urana, with grace and adaptability, transitioned into their increasingly luxurious lifestyle. She was by Charles's side at glittering social events and within the lavish walls of their opulent residences. And Urana wasn't simply a silent partner in their matrimonial bliss. When Charles stood on the precipice of a monumental $50 million offer for half of the Bethlehem Steel Company, he sought Urana's counsel, seeing her as a shared partner in the business claim. This detail not only sheds light on their marital dynamic, but also suggests that Urana Schwab played an active and influential role in their fiscal decisions, sharing in their triumphs and navigating their vast wealth together. It paints a picture of a woman who was more than just a companion. She was a confidant, a partner, and at times, a cog in the Schwab empire. Before the grandeur of the subject of today's video, the 75-room mansion Riverside in Manhattan's Upper West Side, Schwab resided in a stately house in Braddock, Pennsylvania, a stunning creation of brick and sandstone built between 1890 and 1893. It showcased Schwab's status as the superintendent of the nearby Edgar Thomson Steelworks. Tennis courts, greenhouses, a carriage house, and a stone porch provided a canvas for leisure, while the interiors were a masterclass in oak paneling, a grand staircase, wide stained glass windows, and ornate fireplaces. Soon, Charles M. Schwab set his sights on a grand vision, a contemporary mansion, a cutting-edge sanctuary standing in defiance of the traditional grandeur of Fifth Avenue. His eyes landed on a coveted plot on Riverside Drive, nestled between 73rd and 74th Streets, the perfect canvas for his modern chateau. Now, Urana initially balked at the idea of uprooting so far from her social circles. A bona fide socialite who enjoyed the glamour of Central Park's balls, she feared isolation from her close-knit community of friends. Charles, however, comforted her with a promise that their forthcoming home would be an irresistible lure for any guest. Subsequently, Schwab, in his daring pursuit of architectural grandeur, appointed Maurice Hebert, an architect yet to secure a significant reputation, with the awe-inspiring task of designing his Beaux-Arts-inspired palace. The Beaux-Arts style, steeped in the robust traditions of ancient Roman and Greek aesthetics, was widely favored in the United States from the late 19th to the early 20th century. It reflected an amalgamation of classical elements and the glamour of modernity, striking an impressive balance between the two. These grand mansions were symmetrical in design, harkening back to the classical emphasis on harmony and balance. The interiors were thoughtfully structured with a clear demarcation between formal entrances, grand staircases, and the intimate quarters designed for daily living. Classic Greek and Roman architectural elements like columns, pediments, and cornices were employed to infuse a sense of timelessness and sophistication. Statues and figures were often incorporated into the facades, amplifying the grandeur and opulence of the design. The first floor of these palaces was usually elevated, bestowing upon it an air of prominence and importance. Materials like limestone, marble, or granite were predominantly used, enhancing their imposing and awe-inspiring visage. In particular, the Gilded Age saw the rise of various Beaux-Arts marvels like the Vanderbilt Mansion, the so-called Triple Palace in New York City, the Henry Morrison Flagler Museum, aka Whitehall in Palm Beach, and the Breakers Mansion in Newport, Rhode Island. These mansions were designed to be dazzling emblems of wealth, flaunting sumptuous interiors, grand staircases, elaborate woodwork, and extravagant furnishings. Additionally, the Beaux-Arts style was not only limited to private residences, but also extended to public edifices like libraries, museums, and government offices. It was seen as a manifestation of prestige and civic pride, adding to the architectural allure of the urban landscape. The Charles M. Schwab Mansion was more than just a home. It was a monument to ambition, excess, and the fleeting nature of fortune. Though the pink granite has turned to red brick and the chandeliers have long gone dark, its story still speaks, a haunting reminder that even the grandest dreams can vanish. If you enjoyed uncovering this lost piece of history, make sure to subscribe to the American Rewind for more stories of forgotten mansions, vanished landmarks, and the rise and fall of America's golden age. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next Rewind.